Peace. So as promised, I'm back for part 2 in our series on Capricorn. And this installment is titled Becoming Capricorn. If you have not seen the first part in this series, and the title of the video is Man, I Feast, then I encourage you to go back and watch that first before listening and watching this presentation. Again, the title of this is Becoming Capricorn. And just to be clear, this was written in October of 2020. So we're now in November of 2020, of course, and at the current time we have passed the third conjunction of Jupiter and Pluto, but this document is still relevant. The year of 2020 began with a grand stellium in the astrological sign of Capricorn. The year got underway in tragic fashion with the death of Kobe Bryant. Little did we know at the time that this would only be the beginning of, arguably, one of the most bizarre periods in human history. The expression of Capricorn as controlling, calculated, restrictive, stagnant, and slow has been the prevailing energy of the year. Thus, humanity is collectively being pushed into the mindset of, if you can't beat them, join them. The question then arises, how can one become Capricorn? This is not an easy question to answer, nor is there a simple explanation, at least not from my standpoint. However, I have given quite a bit of thought to this. And I've also been paying attention to my own struggles and successes. What is to come is my humble exploration into what it means to become Capricorn. This section is titled Animal Wisdom. Our journey begins with a brief foray into the symbolism of Capricorn. It is primarily associated with the goat, an animal known for its sure-footedness, among many other traits. There are several videos on YouTube of goats climbing steep mountainsides that seem virtually impossible to surmount. How do they accomplish it? By taking one calculated step at a time. However, this careful approach should not be misconstrued with an expression of fear, for the goat displays bravery by even attempting to tackle the daunting task of climbing the super steep mountain. Let's take a closer look at some of the attributes of the goat as explained in the book Nature Speaks. 1. It's able to survive the higher altitudes on mountain regions because of its thick wool. 2. The goat possesses the skeletal flexibility necessary for climbing. 3. Its feet are adaptive to its environment because A. Its toes act like pliers, aiding its grip. B. Soft pads on the bottom act as suction cups. C. The goat can stand on its hind feet and legs and pull itself up with the front legs. Again, these attributes contribute to the goat being an excellent climber. To further expound, the author goes on to say, quote, the mountain goat can, of course, descend much quicker than it can climb. The flexibility of its spine and its sure-footedness enables it to maneuver precarious paths and ledges that would kill other animals. It has been known to make leaps of 30 feet or more to small ledges, barely large enough to stand upon. This reveals much about the flexibility of its skeletal system, but also the ability of its knee joints to absorb shocks. The mountain goat holds the knowledge of how to stretch and reach for new heights and goals. It can teach how to have trust in your own ability and to land on your own feet. End quote. Ancient symbolic significance. In ancient Egypt, Mendes, the goat Men, was worshipped under the form of a goat. The god Men, as in M-N, is also associated with the god Pan, who in mythology is known for his licentiousness, that means strong libido. This ties right in with the animal's association with the word urge, which coincides with the name George. That ring a bell? Which means the ever-existent fire, the solar energy. An obvious irony here is that the sign of Capricorn, occurring in winter, is actually associated with fire. This partly demonstrates a metaphysical phenomenon where what may appear to represent one state originates from or is directly linked to the polar opposite. The winter solstice occurs in the sign of Capricorn, yet it's at this point annually that the sun god, Oak King, is reborn. In keeping with the established pattern, the sun god's opposite, the Holly King, is born at the summer solstice, reaching his full potential and death at the following winter solstice. Another way that Capricorn embodies fire is through its characteristic rigidity and slow movement. The word rigidity denotes boundaries or walls. To ask a homeless person why he or she seeks shelter, especially during the colder months, would seem ridiculous, right? That's because we automatically assume that it's for warmth. Capricorn's boundaries could be likened to the four walls that provide shelter from the cold. Thus, not all boundaries are bad. Capricorn also functions as the metaphorical brakes of the zodiac by slowing down motion so that things can be more finely observed to bring about perfection. On a typical vehicle, motion is slowed or brought to a halt by using the force of friction to generate heat. Thus, the frustration associated with Capricorn could be a result of the stagnating heat we feel. So much more to Capricorn. Through its connection with the goat and the planet Saturn, the sign of Capricorn also brings to mind the beguiled Baphomet or Baphomet. For most, the goat-headed creature is representative of the devil or Satan. However, its symbolic significance is far deeper. According to Idris Shah in his book, The Sufi, Baphomet or Baphomet traces back to Arabic roots FHM as in fetchem, meaning black, or FHHM, fatchem, meaning wise. Here are some other key points that Shah points out regarding Baphomet or Baphomet. In Arabic and Persian, fetchem from the Semitic root FHM means to understand, perceive. Fetchem or fehem also means coal men. Also correlated to an Italian secret society called the Carbonari, the charcoal burners. During the 9th century, Dewey Anan, the Egyptian, founded the Sufi dervish order of builders. There's more to consider regarding this point. 1. The Baphomet or Baphomet is referred to as having been of Nubian black origin. Concurrently, the word Fehem or Fechem adopted the meaning of black and knowledge, understanding by the dervish school of the coal men or Carbonari. The Kaaba cube stone in Mecca is also called Hajar al-Aswad, meaning black stone. Black, as it is associated with coal, can render the stone of the black as Hajar al-Fechem, stone of wisdom. Shah goes further to say that Baphomet or Baphomet, also spelled Baphomet with an F, has a possible connection to the Arabic Abufemet, pronounced in Moorish Spanish Bufihemet or Bufichemet, meaning father of understanding. Here are some other points worth considering regarding the matter. In Arabic, father is taken to mean source, chief seat of. In Sufi terminology, Ras el-Fahmet, head of knowledge, means the mentation of man after undergoing refinement, the transmuted consciousness. The Baphomet or Baphomet is none other than the symbol of the completed man. The black head, Negro head, or Turk's head, which appears in heralding and in English country inn signs, is a crusader substitute word for this kind of knowledge. Here are some more quotes from Shah to contribute to a greater understanding of Baphomet or Baphomet. It may be noted that the shield of Hugh de Payens, the founder, with Bissel de Saint Omar of the Templars in 1118 AD, carried 3 black human heads, the heads of knowledge. The artificial head is not made of brass. Artificial it is, in that it is the product of work in the Sufic sense. Ultimately, of course, it is the head of the individual himself. In Arabic, brass is spelled sufr, connected with the concept of yellowness. Suffer can also be pronounced asfar. The head of brass is a rhyming homonym for head of gold, which is spelled in exactly the same way. The golden head, Saratale, is a Sufi phrase used to refer to a person whose inner consciousness has transmuted into gold. Final quote. The 3 heads of black wisdom on the shield of the founder of the Templars are shown on a background of gold, and says, on gold, 3 Moors head black. End quote. Symbology Adeptus. The latter quote highlighting the significance of the number 3 and its reference to the 3 Moorish heads. This concept is referred to in the Sufi code word ahad, which reduces to AHD. As the Arabic word for one, it denotes unity, but it yields a deep secret that 3 are really one. Although they would argue that there is absolutely no relation to this quote-unquote satanic information, Christians venerate the same basic concept in the Trinity. Baphomet or Baphomet is the golden head. Baphomet as the golden head symbolizes the completed work. Thus, both sides of the human computer, the left and right hemispheres of the brain, have been joined in holy matrimony to give birth to the Christ child. In Gnosticism, this is referred to as the Hieros Gamos. I must also add here that many of the people who venerate Baphomet in our current day also fall prey to the same Cartesian mindset as their Christian adversaries and other antagonists of religious orientation. For they have a disdain for the Bible, Quran, and other holy books. Any mentioning of the Christ figure, although we know it to be mythological, causes a degree of angst. This can partly be attributed to the mishandling and corruption of ancient knowledge that led to the formation of religious, political organizations. Countless wars, murders, acts of thievery, rape and pillage, and other savagery have all been committed under the behest and sanction of some religion's God. Unfortunately, these harsh realities have driven many to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Mundane activities forming the golden head. To some, ascending the spiritual ladder to form a brazen and then a golden head requires some secret initiation, usually by a person or group. The reality, however, is that your everyday life is the actual testing and proving ground. Can you acquire knowledge like what you're consuming right now and then actually apply it in your day-to-day routines? If not, it really is just intellectual masturbation. So instead of leaving you with just a bunch of empty words, I'll share how I have had to utilize what I've learned in my own life. At the time that I'm writing this, early October 2020, the Earth is being heavily influenced by the hard aspects of Mars and Saturn, Jupiter and Pluto in sequential squares. Although there are several other key happenings in the cosmos, I'll focus on these energy interactions as they involve slower moving outer planets. If you're a parent, you have likely noticed your children becoming more restless, which isn't that unusual for small children anyway. What's different, though, is that the current astrological patterns seem to be contributing to changes in sleep cycles. This is of great significance because young children require anywhere from 9 to 11 hours of sleep a night for optimum mental and physical development. If they're running a little behind in this area, then parents can expect moods to vacillate, increased restlessness, and appetite changes. On the surface, these minor changes don't warrant any alarm. With a little creative maneuvering, parents can help to reset their children's internal clock. The challenge, though, is actually implementing a game plan. What I failed to mention above is that children can become pretty difficult to deal with when their habits and routines are interrupted. To add insult to injury, if they watch television or participate in social media, parents are constantly being bombarded with negativity. Whether the source is one of the major networks or a favorite astrologer, people are being flooded with messages such as, "Something bad is coming," or "Look at this bad event that occurred." The messages of doom, coupled with a cranky child and the other inherent stresses that come along with adulthood, can really test one's patience. Let us not forget, though, that the title of this piece, let us not forget, though, the title of this piece, Becoming Capricorn. In the opening, we talked about how Capricorn is the astrological theme of the year of 2020. For many, this generates negative feelings, and understandably so. But can we entertain another way of viewing the situation? What if our children partly represent the archetypal energy of Mars? As in, don't hold me back, just let me go. While we as parents play the role of Saturn, the ruling planet of Capricorn, always erring toward the side of caution, restraint, and, when necessary, control. To a young child saying, no, you can't jump from the top of that playground equipment, may seem like you're no fun, and that you only want to stifle his or her fun and sense of adventure. The reality is that you're merely acting as a responsible parent, cautioning and restraining your child to prevent unnecessary pain and suffering. In addition to young children, I also have a pre-teenager and teenager. They are also subject to the Martian influences and impulses. They can sometimes be expressed as aggression toward each other. Being that my oldest two daughters are from a previous marriage, I'm also confronted by the platonic reality that everything ain't always hunky-dory. The bottom line is that in this society, a man has very little rights, and ultimate say-so when it comes to the rearing of children. As I see certain issues arise, I have to determine what I can actively work to change while accepting the fact that some things are beyond my control as a parent. Furthermore, although any rationally minded parent wants the absolute best for his or her children, the reality is that each soul, as a fractal of the divine, has its own journey on earth. The Jupiterian aspect here is that there remains an ever-present feeling of hope relative to its expansive nature. Now, we all know that expansion can be just as malevolent as it is rewarding. However, in contrast to what appears to be the oppression of Saturn, we see Jupiter as freedom. However, if one doesn't actively focus on development during times of contraction, though, when what is perceived as freedom is attained, it can be far more devastating than the previous confinement. I think that warrants being read again. If one doesn't actively focus on development during times of contraction, though, when what is perceived as freedom is attained, it can be far more devastating than the previous confinement. Many of us discovered that when we first left the protective covering of the home we grew up in. I've seen the ancient archetypal planetary energies unfold in my life, especially during the year 2020, and to an even greater degree as a parent. Thus, I've been led to reach the conclusion that the better I can embody the positive aspects of Capricorn, the more peace I can expect to see in my life and those in my immediate family. What I've discovered is that by not going into spiritual bypass and hiding on some mountain from the realities of life, by not taking mind-altering substances that reduce my chances of functioning at full capacity, by waking up every morning and doing the simple shit, I am making my golden head. That's because I'm not just a mindless automaton merely surviving. By being aware that there is a greater realization while continuing to chop wood and carry water, I am becoming Capricorn. The next time we chat, I'll provide some key strategies that are important to implement right now. This concludes part 2 of this series on Capricorn, which is titled Becoming Capricorn. If you'd like to get more in-depth information on various topics, especially my new booklet, 2020 in the World to Come, then join us on patreon.com/Thenosis. I invite you to visit mastersofthecosmos.com and take a gander. Click on books. You can find my book, The Lies Behind the Ties. Click on Master Students. You can find my booklet, recently published booklet, 2020 in the World to Come. That's in PDF form. You can also get my manifestation guide that's in PDF form. Everything is reasonably priced. But that's all I got for right now. As always, stay down till you get up. And when you get up, stay down. Peace. Bible scriptures paint the picture. Zohar is the dawn of the